just a good-looking fan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, president of the Taika Waititi fan club, Robert Winfree. Robert Winfree, not on the first date, big boy. Robert Winfree, yay!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Robert Shoots Everything That You Think Is Fun.
Welcome to Robert Kills Your Puppies.
Well, I mean, we had to do it with the Batman. We've done it with others. Now we just get to do it with this.
Well, are you going to get up and go get a sandwich during this one?
The gag doesn't work as well because I don't have a camera at the moment.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you just get up and leave, how would we know? How would we know, David? How would we know?
How would we know what?
Exactly. How would we know if Robert gets up in the middle of the podcast and we get a sandwich because we're busy jerking this movie off?
Well, depends if his camera's on.
It's not. How you doing, David?
Fine. We could keep asking him questions requiring him to constantly respond.
Maybe play Marco Polo with him. Like, Marco.
Something like that.
Marco, fuck off. Marco, leave me alone. Marco, cut it out. Anyway, David Wright's with us. Back again, second day in a row. He was on for... He basically, held up the entire Halo review last night, and he's back again to talk Thor, Love and Thunder.
Held back. I thought we started on time.
You held it up. You were... not like that. Not like I had a whole lot to contribute. So... just a review. I think if people have been longtime listeners of the MU Hollywood know, Robert was not a fan of Ragnarok. Robert, in 50 words, and I really do mean 50, can you enumerate in bullet point form your general issues with Taika Waititi's take on Thor?
It's less to do with his take on Thor the character, which intermittently I think he has a decent enough grasp of. Mm-hmm. It's more his overall filmmaking style and how it blends with this character and the stories that he's trying to tell. I don't think it works very well. I finally watched Jojo Rabbit, which I resisted for a long time.
Stop being a bully, David. Go ahead, Robert.
Jojo Rabbit works because a giant part of what's going on is the story being told through the mind of a small child desperately trying to make sense of some of the worst things that have ever happened in human history happening around him.
Sure. Makes sense.
That's why that works. I don't need a small child's interpretation of Thor. And that's pretty much all we get. I don't like his over-reliance on comedy. I don't like his inability to construct emotional moments. I don't like his inability to let emotional moments breathe.
Can we stop you there? I know I don't want to bring David in on this discussion, but I think it needs to be acknowledged, and we'll talk about this in greater detail when we get to the money, but I think we would be remiss if we didn't at least acknowledge up front that the reason why Taika Waititi got this gig was that, and we're talking strictly about Ragnarok, is the first Thor movie did okay. Kenneth Branagh brought a nice air to Thor. He gave it some gravitas, and then everyone hates Thor: The Dark World. You know, people didn't take the character particularly seriously. Didn't think the movie was particularly fun, and so I think Marvel kind of thinking, well, who can we bring on that'll bring in, and this is important. It's easy to dismiss, and God knows we've been dismissive of this sort of thing. But I think we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge Thor needed a big general audience. How do you get a big general audience? You need a director that knows how to connect to the average person. How do you connect to the average person? Through comedy, through music that everyone likes, popular music. So Taika Waititi's take on Ragnarok, the end of the world, is, well, why not make it funny? And why not laden it up, as James Gunn did with Guardians of the Galaxy, with fun music that everybody knows? And it's the most beloved Marvel movie ever by the average person. You can't not acknowledge that. David, go ahead and speak your mind, and then we'll let Robert tell me how I'm wrong.
Well, I kind of view Taika Waititi as like Paul Feig, but with talent.
Sure. Yeah,
That's fair.
Paul Feig,
That's
but
fair.
competent.
Yeah, yes, he tends to overload his stuff with jokes. I mean, I haven't seen much of his stuff outside of the MCU. It's pretty much his MCU films and Free Guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I
don't think Free Guy was him though.
Not sure, but he was in Free Guy at the very least.
He was.
He does have that sort of hyperactive comedy, joke, which works at times.
Hang on one second. Here's what he's responsible for in terms of direction and writing: Eagle versus Shark, Boy, What We Do in the Shadows, Hunt for the Wilder People, Jojo Rabbit, and then he's got something coming up next year, and then he's got a bunch of television credits, one of which includes he's got writing and co-creating credit for Reservation Dogs, for what that means, and Our Flag Means Death, which I've heard people in the LGBTQ community love that show. Okay. Anyway, back to you.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he's very big on the whole joke, which can work.
Mm-hmm.
Like think Zucker brothers, think Mel Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just throw every joke that we think of in the script and just go. If you don't like it, well, there's been 5 others in the time you've been thinking about it, so you're probably moved on by now. Whether or not that works for Thor as a character, I'm not sold on either. I'm the only person on the planet that actually really likes Thor: The Dark World, and I think a lot of it is I think Thor works better when he is more the straight man in his movies. Like the humor comes from it just being Thor in these environments, having to do with these things. Like watching Thor figure out how to hang Mjolnir on a coat rack is far more funny than any of the jokes in Ragnarok or Love and Thunder, in my opinion.
To you,
to me. Yes, and humor is very subjective, and I'm just giving my subjective take on it. And
sure.
I'll be honest, pretty much every joke in the film, when I was in it, everybody was laughing at. So, he's doing what works, and I'm sure we're going to expand on that more when we get to the money. But just for my personal opinion, what I'm looking for in a Thor movie, and I'm not someone who knows the comics at all. All I've really seen of Thor pre-MCU was they had him on one episode of the 90s Hulk animated series.
If Pat Mullen is your representation of what Thor fans wanted, they've never gotten it since the first Thor movie, and even then, that's iffy.
Yeah, but I kind of like Thor more as just sort of being more straight laced. Yeah, I'm just Thor, the God of Thunder, and the humor coming from Thor being put in, situations where it's literally the God of Thunder here doing these things.
Yeah, it's kind of stranger in a strange land, fish out of water. All right, Robert, you've had to listen to me play defense attorney. You've had to listen to David provide expert witness. Go ahead and prosecute here on this on trial of Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah, this one's for you.
I think I do tend to agree with David. I think Thor works better in a different comedic sense. When he is the over-the-top guy, it doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Of the jokes in this movie, I'm not going to say none of them landed because I think that would be a mischaracterization, but the theater that I saw this in, not full, but fuller than normal considering I saw this at noon on a Tuesday. So I got to listen to other people react. And I think there were only 2 times when the laughter was genuine. There's a lot of people who, when they if you listen to people who, write and observe sitcoms and whatnot, they talk about the kinds of laughter you have.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the laughs that they got out of this, at least from, my theater, my experience, they got a lot of canned, expected laughter. Like, oh, I'm supposed to laugh at this. Here's a chuckle.
Right.
They only, twice got genuine kind of laughter out of what happened. And look, there's a lot of people who are perfectly content to observe a piece of media like that, and fine. You're welcome to rot your brain with the equivalent of sugar cereal. Hey, knock yourself out. I am not obliged to make you feel good about your decisions, though.
I think what I wanted to hear you react to was my defense of Taika Waititi. He was given a task. He succeeded at that task with Ragnarok. So much so that they rewarded him with a second attempt at it, and he doubled down on the things that were successful in Ragnarok. And so we got Thor: Love and Thunder.
Well, hang on. I don't want to jump too far ahead to the money and the critics and whatnot. This is not getting the same reaction that Ragnarok did.
No, this might be suffering from, we've seen this trick already.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. I think Ragnarok also stood out a little bit considering when it was released relative to the tone of the other MCU films around that same time.
Yeah.
It doesn't anymore. This is the norm. Everyone's doing your stupid trick. This is Avatar. Hey, come look at the great graphics. You mean the same ones that we're seeing everywhere? Yeah, but ours are not really distinguishable anymore.
You're talking about Avatar 2, Way of the Water, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that's kind of what I think we're getting a little preview of that here. Like, oh, I have a degree of attachment to this, but there's no substance here to keep me invested. And I think people are realizing that about this one. I'm not saying it's not going to make a lot. I'm not calling it for it to bomb or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Be wildly inaccurate. But I don't think it's going to do what Ragnarok did. I don't think it's going to. I expect this one to fall pretty heavily week to week. That's my.
I'll be curious to see if it beats Doctor Strange or not. And I don't. On the one hand, it had a good opening, not as good as Ragnarok, but Ragnarok was also pre-unnamed virus of unknown origin. So I'm less sure about making predictions now than I ever have been in that when we get to the money, because
it's
just so many things you can't count on anymore. Not to mention the fact that I think with Marvel, it's having the same problem that we talked about with Pixar, where fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 9 times, shame on me.
Yeah.
And I think people, because they've been burned, depending on who you are. Like, some people thought WandaVision was fantastic. Some people, not so much. Some people thought Moon Knight was fantastic. Some people, not so much. Ms. Marvel seems to have split the audience. Black Widow.
To the shock of no one, Ms. Marvel split the audience. Who'd have thought?
Yeah. So She-Hulk is not getting great buzz, to the shock of no one. So it's like, and I just, Thor: Love and Thunder may or may not have, if you released this movie 5 years ago, may not have done much better. But 5 years later, in a pandemic, you're dealing with a whole other kettle of fish here, and the same tricks might not be as successful. With that said, let's get into the plot. Robert, if you would please, for brevity's sake, just whip through this, and let's get to the craft.
So we're introduced to Thor. He is no longer Fat Thor. He's got back in shape. He's off adventuring with the Guardians of the Galaxy. They wind up splitting up because he gets a distress signal from Lady Sif, who's still alive, now minus one arm. She is the one who informs him of our primary antagonist, Gorr the God Butcher, played somewhat manically by Christian Bale.
He was having a good time.
He really was.
Christian Bale, how do you want him to play Gorr the God Butcher? Have you seen Heath Ledger's Dark Knight? Sure, everyone has. Do that.
Yeah. How do you want to play him? However I want.
Yeah.
He's earned it.
Oh, look, one scene he's going to be real quiet, and the next he's going to be over the top. Here he's going to try to be scary. Here he's going to try to be sympathetic. And Taika Waititi said, fine, I will write all of this. You just do what you do.
Yeah.
Who has come into possession of a sword that is capable of killing the gods. And he is going planet to planet and just kind of slaughtering all the deities because the god that he was once devoted to didn't help him when his child was dying and didn't care about his worshippers, and now, clearly all gods are bad.
That was the most relatable scene in the entire movie to me, and I also had cancer. Like, the idea that you would give your life to something and it would not only not give anything back to you, but actually mock you for mock you for worshiping it. Like, yeah, and then you want to kill everything and everybody because of it.
Yeah, in his defense, they did establish that the Necro Sword does kind of twist and warp you and make you crazier as time goes on. So,
Yeah, his descent into more madness is perfectly explained.
Yeah, the Darkhold defense.
Pretty much. So, apparently the latest target for Gorr's anger is New Asgard, which is now a tourist trap.
How the Asgardians have fallen.
Overseen by Tessa Thompson with one of her two faces. So Thor shows back up there as Gorr the God Butcher shows up. We also are introduced at this point to Dr. Jane Foster re-entering the narrative, who, because of plot contrivance, is now the wielder of Mjolnir, which has reforged itself. Sure would have been handy when fighting Thanos, but hey.
We'll get to it, but
I will.
We'll get to it, and I somewhat have an issue with it, but not as many as everybody else does.
That's because, and I don't mean this unkindly, you don't care about continuity. You don't care about how these things connect, and you don't like thinking about how they connect.
We can discuss it.
And that's just my loose sense of that. So, Gorr is unable to steal Stormbreaker from Thor, which is what he wants to do because he needs access to the Bifrost in order to open up the Altar of Eternity, wherein he can find the first Eternal, who will grant one wish to the first person that comes to his realm and talks with him. Once again, let's all be very, very grateful that Thanos didn't choose this method, because the Infinity Stones would not save you from this. So he kidnaps the children of Asgard to try and lure Thor into another confrontation. Thor understands this is a trap, but I've got to save the kids because Marvel is for the children.
Well, that is their market.
It really is. In order to facilitate this walking into a trap, he decides to try and get an army of gods to attack the one person in the universe with the one weapon that can actually kill them. Tough sell. They go to Omnipotent City, the home of the gods when they wish to be there. We meet Fat Russell Crowe as Zeus and his
best performance. This is right up there with Robert De Niro in Stardust.
And his very weird accent. Yeah, that's my favorite part of the movie. Russell Crowe going, "It's Greek, right? What if I'm not?" You know?
What if I'm loosely Greek adjacent? And Taika Waititi goes, "Look, I've got to deal with Christian Bale over here. Buddy, you do what you want to do. I got to manage this."
What if I'm not Greek, but kind of gay?
Yeah, he's kind of loosey-goosey. Yeah.
What if I'm like gay Italian? Like, whatever, Russell Crowe. You're Russell Crowe. It's fine.
I mean, look, Zeus sticking it into anything is perfectly in canon with that character.
Fair enough.
Dude got it on with a swan once. Or was a swan and then got it on with, like, Greek mythology is wild. Zeus is, believe me, no one should care one iota if Zeus is a little bit like, oh, you intrigue me at the moment, I'm going to rape you now.
Boy, of all the things we were going to say on this podcast, that was not one of them.
We brought up Zeus. What do you want me to do? Anyway.
Continue the plot synopsis.
Fight sequence with Zeus because Taika Waititi finally got around to playing God of War, I guess. That annoyed me so much. They steal Zeus's Thunderbolt. It's the only weapon that they can gain. They travel to the Shadow Realm, which is a small planet that they crash face first into. The only thing in this movie I laughed at was that, but I laughed. So credit where it's due there. Once there, they begin fighting with Gorr. They enter the Shadow Realm, which is this wonderfully monochromatic zone, except for bits of their magic that have color to them. They fight. Gorr mostly wins. He's then able to steal Stormbreaker as they're all trying to Bifrost out of there. We get the somewhat explanation. We get a bit of the explanation about Jane Foster, who has cancer, stage 4. and she's been trying to stay physically vigorous by utilizing Mjolnir and staying transformed into channeling the power of Thor. This, however, is removing her mortal strength and is allowing the cancer to further ravage her body. I don't know how you made a dumber explanation for this than the comics, but you did. Good job. So she's now at the point where one more time, if I use it one more time, it will be too many times. And I'm 3 weeks away from retirement, and I've got the boat, and I couldn't possibly have any more death flags if you threw them at me. So Thor takes the lightning bolt, or the thunderbolt from that they have. He teleports to the center of the universe where the altar to eternity is. Gorr is there, still with all of the Asgardian children, and he starts channeling the Bifrost to open up the altar to eternity. Thor shows up. Gorr summons a giant bunch of shadow monsters to fight them. Thor imbues a bunch of children with junk and toys with the power of Thor. Once again, another thing that would have been unbelievably useful in any number of previous encounters that this character has been present for.
For a limited time only.
So the small children are able to these tunes of one of the worst songs ever penned. This would be November Rain by Guns N' Roses. Take out the shadow monsters.
That is way subjective, sir. Please move on.
I will stand by that. You can fist fight me when we meet.
Sure.
Thor starts fighting Gorr. The fight doesn't go his way. Natalie Portman shows up, transformed into Thor, so this is her last hurrah. Between the two of them, they're able to overcome Gorr and destroy the Necroblade. This blade that has existed canonically since the dawn of time and is the only thing capable of killing gods, and somehow no one just thought to break it. All of this is for naught, however, as while this entire fight has been going on, during the entire 11-minute runtime of November Rain, the portal to eternity opens. Gorr jumps through it. Thor realizes that he has lost. Gorr has won. Gorr gets to make one wish from the first eternal or whatever, not eternal, the first celestial or whatever the heck eternity is. I think technically eternity is part of the Living Tribunal. Don't quote me on that, though. The Living Tribunal might be a singular entity. I forget. Anyway, Thor then, as he cradles a dying Natalie Portman, and he tells Gorr, you could have anything. So you could wish for all the gods to die, but really, would that accomplish anything? What you want is your daughter back. So wish for her to come back. Don't be so limited in your scope for wishes. This isn't limited wish. This is real wish. Whatever you want. Gorr then wishes for his daughter to come back to life. He dies in her arms. But before he expires, he gets Thor to adopt this child that he just met. Thor does so, and our finale montage is everyone loves Jane Foster. Valkyrie goes back to kind of ruling. Thor then now takes a small child on his adventuring and is very grateful that DCFS has is limited in their responsibilities to the planet Earth. Mid-credit scene, Zeus, who survived his encounter with his own thunderbolt, implores his son, Hercules, to kill Thor, and he's like, yeah, sure, why not? Our post-credit scene is Natalie Portman arriving at the gates of Valhalla, where she is greeted by Idris Elba, as we all wish to be. And he says, thank you for saving my son. I so much appreciate it. Please come enjoy your eternal reward until the sequel when you are brought back to life via bullshit.
I just want to address I'm going to pitch it over to you, David, but let me address the hammer thing so we can just get that out of the way. When the hammer gets shattered in Ragnarok, I think at that particular time, they got yeeted off to Battle World or whatever the name of the planet was.
I can run you through the chronology there if you're so inclined.
Either way, he didn't have time to be like scraping through the grass to grab his bits of Mjolnir. The thing was shattered. They were gone. Yes. Presumably, nobody. If the hammer's not calling to anyone else besides Jane, and was only calling to her when she had cancer, then nobody else has a reason to suspect that the thing can just reform itself. it's assumed.
Apart from the entire 5-year gap when Thor is depressed on Earth, living right next to it because no one else can pick it up. They established this. It's still immovable.
Okay. Again, I don't know why you're arguing this particular point. The thing is in tatters. It's been established that like the stupid cloak in Doctor Strange, it's got a mind of its own and operates in any way that it wants. The fucking hammer at this point is a sentient being. It decided to just lay in pieces until it decided that Jane Foster was worthy, and it called to her, and when it called to her, it reformed. It's not that hard of a concept or really worth getting involved in a huge, ridiculous argument about.
This is not a huge, ridiculous argument. Let me rephrase this for you. No one cared, and then they decided it would be cool if it came back.
Yeah, so
that's stupid if you're trying to write in a consistent world. Apparently no one is.
I don't know why it's that hard to. I'm gonna say this the last time, and then I'm gonna let Judge David rule, and then we're moving on from this. I don't know why you can't just accept the hammer decided to be dead until it decided that it wanted to be with Natalie Portman. Because a big part of this movie is hammers deciding who they want to love and who they don't want to love.
For the record,
I will talk about because that also got way dumb.
Unbelievably dumb.
Look, I'm not saying some of this movie isn't rock stupid. I'm saying it's consistent. The hammers decide who they will love and who they will not love, and they will lay dead until those loves come to them. The hammer Mjolnir decided to be in pieces until Natalie Portman got the right amount of cancer, and then it was like, I love you, Natalie Portman. Come to me, and we will be as one. There's nothing to argue about. That's the story.
No, the story is she proves how everyone's worthy. I'm gonna yell about that closing thing when we get to it.
Okay, Dave, Judge Wright, please rule in favor of me, and so we can move this on.
The only thing I will contribute to this discussion is they did have that flashback scene where Thor is talking to the hammer when he's dating Jane and says protect her or something like that.
Right.
And you see the little Odin logo pop up on the hammer, right? Same as when Odin says, whoever shall possess his hammer shall possess the power of Thor in the first movie. So, the Mjolnir was apparently acting on orders from Thor, though Thor at the time didn't know. So, but I mean, yeah, if you want to get down into the weeds, it doesn't quite make sense why Thor didn't rebuild Mjolnir, because apparently it could go back together. But it's just so low
years.
key.
He had a new axe. He moved on to a different lover.
The only headcanon I would say is
stop projecting.
I don't really understand why this Thor is still worthy of ruling Asgard, since his strategy of ruling Asgard is to give it to Valkyrie and run off and be irresponsible.
You're not wrong.
Listen, not committing to your relationships and running off to do other things is apparently really popular these days.
Yeah, but
anyway,
which kind of brings me to my big criticism is I just cannot believe this Thor is the ruler of Asgard. The first two movies is kind of like Thor stepping into that role and learning how to be responsible, and even in Ragnarok to a degree.
Hang on, in defense of that, he tried, and then it got blowed up, and then he was like, "Why bother?"
Well,
and then Thanos killed half the universe.
Yeah,
in his defense, he tried.
Well, as established in the third movie, Asgard is not a place; it's a people. He had Asgard destroyed because Hera was linked to it, and if you destroy Asgard, you destroy Hera. So that wasn't really the issue, because they just built new Asgard on Earth, and it became a tourist town for some reason, despite having super advanced god technology.
And they needed to make money. All right,
yeah.
Let's talk about the craft of the movie now that we're done discussing who owns Captain America's shield. David.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Craft of the movie. I mean, it does what it set out to do. It was a fun, jokey romp through the galaxy with lots of bright lights and fun action scenes and music that a lot of people like. Again, music taste is very subjective. It was a crowd pleaser. Was there really much deeper than that? Not a whole lot. Thor doesn't have too much of an arc. It's more getting back together with your ex, and 'tis better to have loved than lost than never to have loved at all.
You're dismissing though that is a very nice arc though.
It's there. It's not a huge part of the film, but it is there. Again, I'm not like this film was very meh for me. Like I just kind of found that the constant devotion to comedy and Chris Hemsworth wanting to be goofy all the time kind of just deflated any of the sort of tension in the film to the point where it was just kind of like, well, you're not taking this seriously, neither am I. And I enjoyed the fun bits. The not fun bits was just kind of like, whatever.
I have a thought about that. I want to throw it at you while you're thinking. So maybe this changes your mind about things. This is Marvel's first attempt at a romantic comedy.
Yeah, but it's more of a romantic comedy with hammers.
Yeah, but okay, so so think like Romancing the Stone, that sort of thing, where it's a romantic comedy action movie. I think this is more, you can't just do romantic comedy, not in a Marvel movie. You have to have action. So that's sort of, inherent. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they've never done this before. This is the very first time they've ever tried to do romantic action comedy in a Marvel movie. I don't think it's a complete miss. I think they hit at least a single or a double on it, but it's their first shot at that kind of a genre. They've never really actively dealt with romance. They've never really dealt with like the romance genre before, and at least not in the movies.
Like the romantic plot, I thought was decent. Like Thor and Jane when Thor's not being all goofy and insecure for comedic effect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was some good stuff there, and Star-Lord's pep talk where he basically does that. 'Tis better to have loved than lost than never loved at all. Just in Star-Lord ism.
One sec. What, Robert? You tried twice. What did you say?
I said at best they based on balls. If we're talking romantic action comedy, like if we're talking just quality of story for that genre. They might have squeaked out a walk on a missed call from the umpire. Like that's all. That's it. They didn't hit the ball at all.
Okay. All right. I went to you, and you're like, I didn't get to say my stupid baseball euphemism. Perfect. Go ahead, David.
Yeah. So that was fine. I thought Valkyrie and Jane had some good moments together, but yeah, like the stuff with Gorr was kind of interesting. I wish that they kind of done a bit more with him. Again, like the Marvel movie villain problem is still a problem in this one.
Mm-hmm. Boy, is it.
Yeah, maybe it was a little overstuffed, but yeah, I just kind of thought that, other than the bits where they did do the Thor and Jane thing, it just kind of like it became so goofy. Like, the children have been kidnapped and Thor's giving his rousing speech. It's like, I know you're very scared and afraid and scared. And would you please stop making that noise with the pen, writing it down? And it's just kind of like children have been kidnapped by a man called the God Butcher, wielding the Necro Blade. Like, and like at every step of the way, like Thor's meeting with the kids, and he's again just doofusing around. And like if I was those kids, I'd be like, "We're gonna die." Like this guy has no idea what he is doing. I just kind of think that it just deflated those situations for me. And it's like, I can't really get into the stakes of the movie because the movie's not into the stakes of the movie.
Yeah. That's my major complaint with this is the tonal inconsistency. Because had it just played I think Gorr the God Butcher was the wrong villain for this. They should have gone with like Enchantress or somebody.
Yeah, something goofy to match the goofiness of Thor in this film. In the Dark World, there's like this great bit in the last fight scene where like they're being thrown through portals all over the place. Where Thor and Malekith they get thrown through a portal on top of, I think it's called like the Gherkin or something, like the big egg-shaped building in London, and like they just kind of stop fighting each other and they're just trying to deal with like falling on this building, and they're like whoa, and it's funny because it suits the situation and it's a nice break in this sort of seriousness of this fight, and it feels a lot more natural. Whereas if it was just like Thor being goofy all the time, it would have just been more goofiness, and it would have like Malekith would not have been that scary of a villain.
Yeah, I'm okay with your they have to get the children back and the villain has kidnapped the children. Again, do the Enchantress, do somebody. Don't give me the problem I have with Love and Thunder is that if this is about Thor finding love again and love is life, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with this idea of I lost everything, and yes, I fought to save the universe in Endgame, but even since then, like I don't know what I'm here for or what I'm doing. I'm just sort of listless. And so he's out there with the Guardians, and it's like, well, I guess I'll just dedicate myself to fighting. That's all I ever seem to be good at.
Yeah, I did like that line. He fights the good fight for those that can't fight good. Yeah, I mean, as far as Korgisms that was pretty good. And just my sort of final bit here. Well, actually, two things. One, the fight with Zeus was awesome. Just the way that he just totally ripped through him, I thought was just a real great example of just how tough Thor is. And that being said, I'm like, why does anybody care about Hercules? He pretty much curb stomped Zeus halfway through the film. It's like, oh, great, it's another guy with a sword that wants to kill him. Good luck. But like the bit at the end where sort of he says, like, you've won, Gorr, and then he just goes to walk away, and Gorr's, don't you turn your back on me. He's like, what? Like, you've won. Like, I'm gonna die here, and I'd rather spend my last minutes with the woman I love before I'm gone. So, nuts to you. And I think that was sort of what kind of turned Gorr, the sort of humanizing, for lack of a better word, gods.
Well, what I was saying, I thought you were done with your point, but
yeah, sorry, pretty much that's all I got.
The tonal inconsistency of, there's a really great story to tell of somebody who has lost their faith, and their faith has driven them to murderous madness. That's a story. Deal with that.
Yes.
Don't deal with that. And then the other thing you're dealing with is I need to find love again. I need to find a reason to go on.
Yeah, I need to find myself again.
Right. Fighting is not a reason to go on. Fighting is a reason to fight. Love is a reason to get up in the morning and go on. Love of yourself. Love of
as Commando teaches us, we fight for love.
Yeah. That in and of itself was good enough of a story. Now, you get a witch out there who steals children because she's going to bake them in her gingerbread house. Fine. That's what they can deal with, and that's good enough of a movie. This was two different movies smashed together, and tonally they didn't match. And so you undercut the seriousness of Gorr the God Butcher by trying to dumb him down for your child audience, and trying to jury rig him into this love story, which made no sense. And then you've got this goofy love story, this really colorful, goofy 80s hair metal love story that's great. Yeah. And you're trying to jam it into this like melancholy meditation on loss of faith and murder.
Yeah, I do say that I
don't match.
Yeah, I do like the sort of heavy metal aesthetic for Thor, the sort of Viking metal thing. It works.
That's one of the things I loved about this movie, was that this was right out of the cartoon heavy metal. So like that's great. That aesthetic matched the love story element of it. It didn't match the Gorr the God Butcher. Like, that should have been a whole other thing. But that's really like my biggest complaint about it, because again, I like the story that Thor goes on in terms of, it's better, as you said before, it's better to have loved and lost than to not love at all. I think that's a very valuable lesson. And I think, the idea of, it's hackneyed, don't get me wrong, but I think the idea of, he loses the love of his life, but he gains this child, and he dumps his love and wisdom into this child, and they go off and have adventures together. That's fine. I like that. That was a nice ending. And for me, it saves a lot of the movie. Obviously, I loved all the music. I'm a huge I'm not wearing my t-shirt tonight. Last night, I was wearing Guns N' Roses t-shirt. Tonight, I'm wearing Black Flag. I'm a huge Guns N' Roses fan. I just got to see them live last year for my wedding anniversary. And so hearing him messing up aliens to Welcome to the Jungle, and doing other stuff to Sweet Child of Mine at one point.
Multiple points.
Yeah, multiple points. November Rain didn't bother me the way it bothered him, but I like November Rain, as epic as it is. So none of that stuff. I know you do. None of that stuff bothered me. I was really enjoying it. I can appreciate the colorful aesthetic and color palette of this movie. I guess I'll talk a little bit about the cancer stuff. Cancer survivor twice.
I don't think you're qualified to talk about this, Mark.
You're right. Let me move on. Look, the idea that things won't work and you're gonna die resonated with me a lot. And this thought of like, I gotta try. I was reminded of Jim Carrey's Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon, where like he'll try anything at this point because it's or just die. My problem is, while comic accurate in the sense of Jane Foster gets cancer and that's how she ends up becoming Thor in the comic, and so they just mirrored that to the best of their ability. It's still way too serious of a thing for as goofy as this movie was. And so again, we have some tonal problems. We get like one scene, and look, I've been through chemo. It really messes you up. And she seems fine. Like, now, you know, and not that I needed, not like we needed to go full American Splendor with her, but either do cancer or don't have pregnant cancer. It's too serious of a thing, and I can see why some people were like, boy, you really kiddied this up and didn't really give people, you know, that. What was missing for me was, I think, the sense of desperation. It looks like she's just going through another chemo treatment, and you never really get a sense of the chemo's not working, because I've been through the chemo isn't working. They had to change mine 2 and 3 times, and how like worse off I got when it wasn't working. You don't get any of that with her. Cutting away from her picking up Mjolnir and then just flashing forward to the fight with the shadow people thing, and she's already like fully formed. I granted, no one except a handful of girls are coming to this movie to see fucking Natalie Portman as Thor, but it would have been nice to spend some time with her a little bit during that, instead of jumping into she's a full-fledged hero who knows how to use the hammer and can fight people. Because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but she's an astrophysicist, not a fucking Viking warrior. She just because you have the power of Thor doesn't mean you know how to swing that hammer and hit things. And she was like, full on Avenger at that point. I'm like, and it's funny the way they treated it too, because it was like, on the one hand, it's like, oh, she's too new at this, she doesn't know what she's doing, and they limited that to she has bad catchphrases, not she's bad at this. They saved she's bad at this with Thor. Like Thor messes up that group of aliens and then shatters the religious temple. And it's like, oh, Thor is a little heavy-handed. Meanwhile, Natalie Portman just deftly defeating all the enemies, but she's goofy and awkward. Oh, she's a bad hero. Come on. So, like, I could see why Robert and, like, some of the writing there just probably made you want to bang your head into the seat in front of you.
In fact.
But overall, just so we can move this on, the scene, I want to bring this up because the group I saw it with, I went with a friend and her kids and my kids, and we were talking about it we went to go get a meal after, and I was like, trying to conduct a little group of, with the age ranges for like 8 to 17 of kids, and I'm like, what did you guys think of the movie? What were your favorite parts? What were your least favorite parts? To the letter, everyone had the same complaint about the Omnipotent City scene. They're like, if this is where all the gods are, where were all the gods? What do you mean? Well, there's Zeus. Where was Athena? Where was Ares?
Actually, I have an issue with that. Like, we've established that Athena was based on Athena from the Eternals, but now we just learned that the Greek gods are apparently real. So is there also a real Athena?
Okay. Hang on one sec. Before I continue with this, like, we're getting comments in here from our friends Pat and Derpy Gaming. So Derpy says this movie was as mid as can be.
Yep.
Fun, though. And Pat, big Thor fan, says, I like the scene where Thor calls James. Nope. Damn it! Damn you, Pat!
You saw a different cut than I did. I think there might be a bit of headcanon going on.
I didn't read that ahead of time. How did the women feel when Thor told Jane to get back in the kitchen? Love you, Pat. Not getting on the show again. Anyway,
Oh, you've got to proofread that, Mark.
He got me, man. I normally do, and I'm like, ooh, can't put that on screen. And I just saw like the comments as we were talking, just mounted. I'm like, oh, let me get these in real quick. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, YouTube. Anywho, fuck you, Pat. Anyway,
you should have picked up on that, Mark.
1 in a million shot, Pat. We appreciate you taking it.
Fucking blew up the Death Star. Anyway, this group of kids all said the same thing, like, where are all the other gods? From a craft, like strictly like craft and budgeting perspective, my explanation was you don't want to like just dump a ton of money into like colorful costumes and different name actors just so you can have a bunch of gods. You're going to blow your budget on one stupid scene, and all you needed were nameless goons so they could have a fight scene. But I thought it was an interesting observation, and I don't know if one that really warrants further discussion, but they were like, if this is Omnipotent City and it's full of gods, we should have seen a whole room full of different gods. I'm like, huh.
Did they not see the bit where they go past Bao, the dumpling god, and Korg gets to see his god? Like,
Sure. I thought it was, and they would not let that go either. Like, I tried to move the conversation on, and they just went on and on and on about, like, there should have been this god, there should have been that god. And then my daughter is like pointing at different, like she was like, I think I saw Athena over here, and she's like trying to like find Easter eggs of gods in different parts of the scene. And I'm like, nope, it was just a fight scene, guys. They were up to a fight scene. That's what was happening. I really liked the final fight, the monochromatic fight scene in whatever universe, mirror
Shadow
universe
Zone
they're in.
or whatever.
Shadow,
It's called,
yeah,
yeah.
the Phantom Zone. You were talking before about like imbuing the kids like with powers, and I was like, at this point, we're doing Superman 4. People can just have whatever powers the movie needs them to have. I mean, it's bad writing, but I've long since stopped caring about such things. Like, it's fine, he can do it. I mean, in the comics, somebody, maybe it was Loki or the Enchantress, Pat will know. Pat actually brought this up on Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, where they imbued a fucking crowbar, you know, and a handful of other weapons for the wrecking crew. Like, I don't care at this point. Comics are dumb. So, you know, if they want to give Thor the power of imbuing weapons temporarily, who cares? I'll go over to you. I'll go over to you, Robert, for your thoughts on this. Man, overall, I was entertained by the movie. It obviously has problems. It has tone problems. It has writing problems, but it's also 2022 Marvel. You know, it is what it is. Sorry, your brother weighing in. This movie is bad and should feel bad. I mean, that's an opinion. Your turn.
All right, let me start with my good. If there was an Oscar for the best sport about doing stupid stuff in a film, Chris Hemsworth should get it.
Yeah.
Like, he does the dumbest stuff, and he does it with enough professionalism to try and make it work. So, serious kudos to him for that. He got into insane shape for this, so again, kudos to him for that. I had other good things. Hang on. I'm with you guys about I like the fight sequence on the again, like in the Shadow Realm. That's legitimately visually interesting, somewhat tactically interesting. Not really, but it's the closest this movie gets to that. Like, that's all well and good. Hemsworth and Portman have good chemistry, so there's that. Yeah. Thank you for that, Pat. You're just providing appropriate context for what we discussed earlier. Here's a couple of the problems with this movie. It is badly paced. It is. I almost fell asleep in it. I almost stole Mark's gimmick of falling asleep in the movie theater while watching a movie. Like, that's how utterly.
I will tell you that was the kid's complaint too. Is that, hey, when stuff is happening, this movie is fun, but when they're just talking, yikes.
So that's a real problem. The other positive. This movie, while Thor does stupid things, it does not treat him like a joke. And considering how many of these stupid Marvel movies lately have treated their marquee name heroes as unbelievably stupid, that deserves to be acknowledged. So, this is me acknowledging it. Bale's performance as Gorr is wildly uneven, and it is tonally dissonant within a tonally dissonant film. It is a waste of a perfectly good concept and character, and shame on them for doing this. The shadow minions that he summons, somewhere in someone's head when they did this, they had at least the vague idea that these things would be somewhat intimidating. And they're just not. They don't look great. And then to cement their jobber status, regular Asgardians are killing them in the first attack on New Asgard. To say nothing of an army of them being mowed down by children.
Children imbibed with the power of Thor and Zeus.
I don't care. Like, there's no tension to those creatures. None. Absolutely none. At no
They're essentially
point.
they're essentially Batman 66 goons.
They're stormtroopers.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we're gonna complain about that, we can just complain about just about every henchman for every supervillain.
That's kind of why I brought it up. It's like, I get what Robert's saying, and I think it's more of just sort of a plea to Hollywood. Could we might, yes, nameless goons and armies, but maybe give them a little bit more of a threatening vibe. Not, why do we wear this armor?
Yeah. See what we feel about the Eternals when what are they called? The monsters, the
Deviants.
Deviants. Thank you. When a deviant showed up, shit got real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Your brother going, if anyone hasn't made the joke about Christian Bale playing Gorr, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Ha 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 ha.
That's actually pretty good.
I taught him well on occasion. I mentioned the pacing, and I think that's a real problem with this movie. There's nothing to make the majority of it interesting. There's the over-reliance on jokes. And the problem with that is if they don't land, Waititi just repeats the same joke.
Yeah. I meant to mention that.
Over again.
The first time he does the projection on the hammer, that the hammer is a girl that got away, it's kind of funny. The second time, it's like, oh, it's a little creepy, but okay. The 500th time they do that same joke, I'm like, I'm over this all the fuck ready already. Let's go. Like, can we not? It got very Family Guy to where, but it just short of becoming funny again. Like, it really got overplayed real fast.
I can't tell you how much I hated those goats. Almost walked out of the theater.
Can I tell you that got funny again by the end to me? Like, after a while, I was like, with the stupid goats already. And then by the end, it was like, nay. And I'm like, and I started laughing just because, like, oh my God, we're still doing this.
Look, if that ever got to the point of being funny for you, I just attribute it to Stockholm Syndrome, but fair enough.
After they hit the planet, it was kind of funny.
I hoped they died. Like, that thing crashes into the planet. I go, I hope those goats are dead. And then, no, one of them takes down a shadow monster, and then they leave. Like, that's, I think, the big failing of this movie. If the humor doesn't work, there's no diversity of humor. Mm-hmm. It's the same couple of gags the entire way through. Yeah. And if those don't work for you, you are going to have a miserable experience watching this movie.
Yep.
I'm not with you on, Thor adopting a small child that he just met after basically facilitating the death of her father and everything being kind of hunky-dory, and then her having laser eyes for reasons. Not a big fan of that.
Okay. I mean, you're allowed to not be fans of things. I don't care about the details of that. I care that finding love is important, and love of a mate isn't the most important thing ever. It's just love in and of itself, and so love of a child works just as well. That's all I was saying.
Fair enough. I did not. The cancer stuff with Natalie Portman annoyed me because of what you mentioned. Mm-hmm. Like, this is not a thing that you should be treating like this under those circumstances. That was a bad call. It was a really bad call.
All right.
I mean, again, at least the comic treated her cancer with gravitas. Like, if you see her when she's not transformed, she is. She looks like a stage 4 cancer patient. Like,
yeah.
Feel free to look up images if you want. Like, they went out of their way to make it clear when she is not transformed, she is ravaged.
I had stage 4 cancer. I was still heavy, so I wasn't necessarily like that skinny or anything.
Could have at least shaved her head.
I was very sick. Yes, like I said, when I saw her in the chemo chair, which, by the way, that's not how that goes. Like, that's now the second time I've seen chemo on like television in a movie. I've had chemo in a fair amount of places. There's a partition. Like, you're not on top of each other like that.
You're not donating plasma.
Yeah, I don't know why every time they show like people getting chemo, I've either been in a room or it's a hospital bay with like partitions around so that you're separated from people because they don't want you on top of each other. Because hey, you know what happens when you get chemo? Your immune system goes away, and they don't want you getting each other sick. Anyway, go on.
The CGI in places for this movie falls apart. Mostly, it looks good. I'm going to stress this. Mostly, it looks good. So don't yell at me about this. I'm with you on the color palette. I actually think Thor lends itself to the kind of hyper saturated, very stylized color palette. Like that, I'm okay with that. I think that works. But there's times when what they're doing with the CGI is very obvious, and and because elements of it are so good, it stands out even more. To say nothing of the circumstances wherein it's very clear that they CGI'd Natalie Portman's head onto someone else's body. Like, that's a thing they did more than once, and you can tell. So, there was that. All right. I have refrained from yelling at Taika Waititi directly about anything related to this movie, but I'm going to yell at him about this one. Korg should not have been here. Korg is a joke. Some people find him funny, some people don't. Fair enough. I'm not here to judge anyone who thinks what Korg does is funny. But he's a joke. He's a one-note joke. And like every other joke you put in here, you beat it into the ground to the point where even people who might have thought it was funny were sick of it.
No, hang on, I gotta stop you because Pat's in the YouTube comments, and like every other comment is now the C word. You're not getting another one through, Pat. You got me once. You got me once because I wasn't reading what you were doing. I'm now reading everything that you're doing. Like half listening to Robert, half texting my wife, half reading what you're doing. 3 halves. Okay? You're not going to get another one past the goalie on this one. So you keep having fun in the comments. I'm not letting you through. Go ahead.
Yeah, Korg should not have been in this movie nearly as much as he was. This is just Waititi's vanity. He just wanted to be on screen more. Well, his character, the one that he voiced, it's obviously not him physically. That's all that was. That was a vanity move, and shame on you. You made your movie worse.
Your brother and Evan Bevins are going to get into like a sissy slap fight because he says some people want
that would go very
the screen.
That would go very badly for Mr. Bevins. I've seen him and I've seen my brother. I know which of them can physically handle themselves.
But which one has bigger pants that they can throw? Because some people want to throw their pants at the screen whenever he shows up. Yeah, Evan Bevins is a big fan of Korg.
Okay. Some people liked the Repo Man, too. What do you want me to say?
All right. Come on, keep going.
Anything else I had to say about the craft of this movie? Again, if they actually leave Jane Foster dead, I'll applaud it. I doubt that they will, but
even my 8-year-old son's like, "Fuck this movie." He was like, "I don't even understand why they killed her. They're just gonna bring her back." Like he's just come short of because he doesn't know any better. But he's just come short of saying the only people who stay dead in Marvel movies are Uncle Ben, and
that's it.
And that's it. He's like he walked out of the movie like, "Jonas, what did you think of the Love and Thunder?" He's like, "It was great. It was better than Doctor Strange, but I don't understand why they had to kill Jane Foster. They're just going to bring her back again. It's a Marvel movie. Nobody stays dead." Like I said it before with the Doctor Strange movie. Like when you've lost the 8-year-old, you have definitely lost your audience.
Okay, the last thing I have here on the craft, and this really annoyed me. One of the repeated devices, the repeated narrative devices throughout this movie is someone telling the story of Thor, right?
Mm.
The final one is, let me tell you the story of Mighty Thor. Jane Foster, who helped show us all what it means to be worthy, and I almost swore at the screen. You do not get to try and Stockholm Syndrome me or gaslight me into pretending that I didn't just watch your shitty movie. I was here. I watched it. I heard it. I know what that movie was about. I know what Jane Foster's arc was about. Had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with worthiness. She didn't pick up the hammer because she was worthy. She picked up the hammer because Thor told it to protect her. You made this explicit. You do not.
And she was dying. Don't forget, she was dying. She was dying.
I don't care.
Okay, but that was. Look, I'm not arguing with you. I'm trying to accentuate your point because David reminded me. Yes, Thor said, "Be a good dog and protect the girl." You know, Chewbacca, and the hammer called to her and said, "Come get me. I'll save you from your cancer." Which makes the whole thing about it sucking her life force really stupid.
It really, yes, it really does.
Come here so I can kill you. I'm a horror monster.
And you don't get to try and shoehorn in this was about a strong female character into your ending speech when I've just watched your stupid movie wherein that factored not at all. I am not brain damaged despite this movie's best efforts. I remember what I watched. Shame on you. Bad writing. Utter shame. Your family, all of it. Terrible writing. Terrible.
Dishonor on your cow.
Darn right.
Can I...
Dishonor on your stupid lava baby.
Can I talk really quick about something I did like about the movie? We're all friends here. We can be loosey-goosey. I don't have to... I say, you say, we say, we're done. I really liked when they connected on the right before I think Act 3, where they have their moment on the Viking ship, and and he talks about loving her, and they reconnect. I again, you don't get to do a lot of romance in Marvel. I think I've talked about this in the past. Mike Stokata talked about it in like how romance is utterly absent from Star Wars. It's like love and romance is a part of the human condition. And sometimes I think, we as like action fans, you don't get a lot of, it's like you get the love interest because you got to put a sexy broad in your action movie. And that's all it is. It's just like, why are these, I think like the pitch meeting guy makes fun of this a lot. Why are these two people in love with each other? Because they're hot and in the movie.
Yep.
So I think the critical element of relationship bonding, people coming together, and real love are often missing in movies like this because, again, you're trying to reach an audience that really didn't come here for romance. And I want to give Taika Waititi credit for, at least in that one scene, like if he nailed nothing else in this movie, I think he nailed the essence of love and connection between Thor and Jane in that one bit. And it's probably one of my favorite parts of the movie. So I just want to throw that out there.
I heard someone else say at one point about the Marvel movies, this was years ago, that his opinion was one of the things that was utterly absent from so many of the Marvel movies was Eros.
Mm-hmm.
It was the kind of like genuine romantic, I'm going to say erotic connection, but I don't mean in the like salacious sense. And how that was something that Marvel had not done. Like like you said, you have love interests,
mm-hmm.
but you can count on one hand the number of those pairings that you thought like were genuine.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason they had Cap never move on from Peggy.
Right.
Like that was kind of it. There was never a sense for like, even Tony and Pepper, which went on forever. Like that never. There was no spark there, Like you get a little bit of it with Chris Pratt and Gamora, but all the other ones they're perfunctory. Like you said, they're here because they have to be here.
They tried with Age of Ultron with Scarlett Johansson and what's his nuts who plays the Hulk, Mark Ruffalo, and here's the thing, and this is why I think, at least on the subject of love and romance, I think Love and Thunder is wildly more successful than any other Marvel movie, as it should have been, because rapey Mick touchy fingers. What's his name? The director of Age of Ultron.
Joss Whedon.
That's the one. So Joss Whedon like wants to spend time and develop this relationship between Hulk and Black Widow, but we have to get on to killing the robots, so we can't do anything with it. We have like a scene where she like acknowledges I'm a monster too because I can't have children. Hey, you can't just drop a bomb like that. Like, I understand not a lot of your audience is women. It's more dudes who aren't going to relate to that sort of thing. But to like the 5 women who showed up for Age of Ultron, it was like, oh God, please don't talk about how if you're a monster if you can't have children to women. And then you're like, moving on now. We have to go deal with Tony and and fucking Shield. Like, okay, you can't do that.
Serious life advice for anyone out there. Okay? Women, men, whatever. Don't care. Serious life advice. If you know a man who is a vocal and active feminist, he's a scumbag.
I like that your takeaway from my don't talk about devouring women that way.
Here's what I mean. Here's why I bring this up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, look, if you have any men who are genuinely misogynistic, screw them. Like, this is not defending backwards thinking in that respect. Any man who goes out of the way to broadcast their feminism, that's a giant red flag for them as a person.
Mm-hmm.
You can support feminist causes. There are, at various points in the various feminist movements, they have been entirely on the right side of everything, and they should have been supported more than they were. But you get someone who is broadcasting it, that's a pretty big red flag. Which is to say, why am I not surprised that someone handling that someone least equipped to discuss, even remotely, the mental and emotional headspace of women trying to deal with not being able to have children would be that asshole.
Right. So I only bring it up because we could be here for another hour, and I really want to wrap this up by 10:45, 11 at the latest. I bring it up because that's about the closest Marvel has ever really come to dealing with the nuance of relationships between romantic partners, other than the way that every action movie deals with it. Hot man, hot woman, make a baby. So at least like Taika Waititi, for all of his foibles and faults in filmmaking and overuse of the same joke, I think cracked it out of the park in that one scene. David, we've been talking as we are wont to do, because we love each other. So I'm gonna let you get the last word here on the craft, and then we'll get into the money.
Kind of just what I said before. It's it doesn't quite work for me with the comedy versus the tone, but again, like that, there is a story there is character growth there's emotion. Everybody laughed when they were supposed to laugh. The action scenes were solid. Like it did what it was supposed to do. Didn't quite do it for me, but like as we're about to discuss, it did what he wanted it to do.
It absolutely was wildly successful. And how successful was it? We're going to find out momentarily.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
Alrighty. On a budget of Marvel money, $250 million. Its current box office gross is $315.5 million. It's going to read this straight through because it broke all kinds of records, according to the wiki. As of July 11th, 2022, Thor, Love and Thunder, Mastodon, Blood and Thunder, grossed $156.3 million in the United States and Canada, and $159.2 million in other territory for a worldwide gross, as I said, of $315.5 million. The film's opening weekend earned $303.3 million globally, of which IMAX contributed to $23 million, making it the third largest July debut of all time for the IMAX format. In the US and Canada, the film was projected to gross $140 to $167 million in its opening weekend, along with a total gross of $345 to $420 million. The film earned $69.5 million on its first day, which included $29 million from Thursday night previews. This marked the second highest opening day and preview night of 2022, behind Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Missed Opportunities, as well as the fifth highest opening day ever. Fifth highest opening day ever for an MCU film. Its opening weekend earned $144.2 million, which was the largest debut for the Thor franchise. Doesn't matter what any of us think. This thing in Taika Waititi is getting more, just like the ABBA song. More. How do you like it? How do you like it? Taika Waititi. How do you like it? How do you like it? The 12th largest for the MCU and the 3rd largest of 2022 behind the Multiverse of Madness and Jurassic World Dominion. Of the 144.2 million figure, over 13.8 million came from IMAX, making it the 5th. Okay, we already did all that. Love and Thunder was also the 6th film in the COVID-19 pandemic to earn over 10 million theater admissions in its opening weekend. Outside of North America, Love and Thunder grossed to 15.7 million from 17 markets on its opening day, surpassing the first day overall results of Thor Ragnarok by 39%. Its weekend gross of 159.2 million from 47 markets, making it the MCU's 9th largest overseas debut ever, and the 3rd largest for any Hollywood film released in the COVID-19 pandemic. It set several international box office milestones in its opening weekend, making the 2nd highest pandemic opening in Australia, New Zealand, and the Philippines, while earning the 3rd highest in numerous territories, including Brazil, Italy, Thailand, Singapore, and Argentina. As of July 10th, 2022, the film's largest markets internationally are Korea, the United Kingdom, Australia, Mexico, and India. Like I said, it doesn't matter what any of us think. This thing is a wild success. And there's only going to be more of this sort of thing as time goes on. Because as we know, when studio executives happen to come upon a successful formula, what do, Robert?
They run it into the ground. Then they run it further into the ground. Then they go, well, why won't China let us in? Then someone dies near the head of the studio, and someone else goes, well, what if we monkey with the formula a little bit, by which point no one cares about the formula anymore, so they find a new formula, and then we just repeat this.
Yep. All right, so Thor Love and Thunder was the number 1 movie of the weekend, as we said it would. Minions fell from 1 to 2 and had a 56.9 drop. What do you think about that, Robert?
That's probably about what was expected. It opened bigger than anticipated, so it was going to drop a little heavier than... the bigger the opening weekend, generally the bigger the drop. So I'm not terribly surprised by that.
Top Gun fell from 2 to 3. That is also breaking all kinds of ridiculous records. I think it's like the top earner since the great theater reset post COVID-19. I can look that up a little bit later if we feel like it, but just take it as read. Like a lot of the articles I read today in preparation for this are Top Gun Maverick is still killing it in the theaters. Elvis fell from 3 to 4. Jurassic World Dominion 4 to 5. The Black Phone, which is I think now PVOD or is about to be, 5 to 6. Lightyear 6 to 7. Marcel the Shell with the Shoes On jumped from 11 to 8. Mr. Malcolm's List 7 to 9. Doctor Strange currently on Disney Plus 9 to 10. Everything Everywhere All at Once 8 to 11. The Bad Guys 14 to 12. Bob's Burgers 13 again. Official Competition 16 to 14. The Forgiven 17 to 15. Hallelujah 22 to 16. Uncharted 21 to 17. Just got greenlit for a sequel, by the way. I don't know how you feel about that.
Badly.
I guess that's how you feel. And Phantom of the Open stayed at 18, and debuting at number 19 was Fire of Love, and 20 is Fire. Also debuting this week was Dreaming Walls Inside the Chelsea Hotel at 24, Murina at 25. And that was the weekend that was. Worldwide, Top Gun still, safely at over $1 billion, currently inching its way to 1.2. Doctor Strange petered out, 953. Jurassic World still climbing the charts at 877. Not bad. I don't think it's gonna pass Doctor Strange or make the billion mark, but I think Universal is fine with it. Like, at least we didn't lose money. The Batman slipping to number 4. Watergate Bridge at number 5. Minions shooting up the charts, just putting everybody to shame. Illumination is the theater to beat. Pixar is in the rearview mirror. What a once great studio has fallen.
Financial.
Yes. At number 6, Fantastic Beasts at number 7 at 405. Sonic the Hedgehog at 401. Uncharted also at 401. And Thor Love and Thunder making its debut in the worldwide box office at number 10 with $315 million. It has almost no competition this weekend. The biggest worldwide release is Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank, and Where the Crawdads Sing. So I would imagine the number one movie of this weekend will also be Thor: Love and Thunder.
It
Robert,
probably holds on.
Yeah. Nope comes out the 22nd. That'll be the number one movie of its weekend, more than likely. And then the 29th is DC League of Super Pets, which will be the number one movie of its weekend. So, and then we have Bullet Train. That'll be the number one movie of that weekend.
I don't know why you have so much faith in Bullet Train. Just throwing that out there.
A lot of marketing. If you've been to the theater in the last 6 months, you've seen that trailer.
I have. Look, they did a good job of telling people it's out there. I'm not sure it draws a giant audience. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, giant audience, nothing. It'll be the one that if anyone goes to the movies that weekend, it'll be the one everyone sees. So all I said was it'll be the number one movie of that weekend. But we're talking between now and then. What do you think? Nope's going to repeat? It's not. It's that it's Nope is what comes out the week before. So either Nope repeats or Bullet Train is your number one movie. I mean, I'm not convinced Nope's going to repeat.
All right.
Anything else you want to discuss as far as the wild success of Thor: Love and Thunder?
Nope. You are. You know what? No. Here's all I'm going to say about this to the people.
Yes, sir.
You don't understand what you're doing here. Hang on. Let me just which is just to say the following. You are not going to like where this ride goes. That's it. That's all I'm saying. You're not going to like how this turns out.
So much of what's going on in Marvel is already in the can or so far into development. They can't Taika Waititi everything. If you're suggesting that
you want to tell you what, let's see how many of these projects that are already quote unquote in the can have reshoots done. Let's find out.
Okay.
You want to bet?
No, but I do want to revisit this conversation. So at the end of 2023, so here's what we have next, because there's no possible way they can Taika Waititi up Wakanda Forever. It's too far into development. It's too far into post-production. It's coming out in November. There's no fucking way. They're gonna have to lock that movie soon.
Here's the other reason I think they won't mess with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Coogler has again, I did not care very much for Black Panther for a variety of reasons, but we talked about it. We talked about it. Listen to our review. We yelled at plenty of people who had wrong-headed criticisms of that film.
Yes,
but Ryan Coogler has a pretty specific artistic vision, and I don't think they're going to rock the boat too much with him on this one.
Okay. Well, after that is the third Ant-Man movie.
Guarantee. They are licensing new music for that right now.
Okay. After that, I think is the Marvels.
Oh, yeah. Again, I would guarantee you they are immediately anything we can do to try and make Brie Larson seem like a real human being.
And then I think there's a Fantastic Four movie that follows that, and then Blade.
Yeah, the Fantastic Four movie I'm worried about at this point.
Okay.
They still haven't found a director.
Yeah, that seems to be a project in danger. I think the argument that we're having is and I'm not sure if you're just limiting this to Marvel, if this is going to be the James Gunn thing.
It extends far beyond Marvel, but since we're talking about Marvel...
James Gunn had a wild success with Guardians of the Galaxy, and it affected movies far and wide. Everyone's sort of copying the James Gunn formula for a while, and no one was getting it right. But now you look at Taika Waititi and the success that he has with this Thor movie. Your contention seems to be that everyone's going to start copying Taika Waititi, and it's going to affect films far and wide, not just the Marvel movies. And I'm not convinced that that's the case. So we'll see.
Wait for the next Jurassic World movie or whatever they do with the IP.
I think they're done with that.
They're done with this trilogy, quote unquote. But they're not going to let that lie fallow. They are not going to. We're not going to wait 5 years for the next Jurassic whatever movie. We're not.
Okay, so So your contention is that when Jurassic Universe comes out, or Jurassic Galaxy,
whatever it happens to be,
yeah, that it's going to be all Taika Waititi'd up.
Yep.
All right. Let's much like our Minions review, come back in a year and hear how wrong or right we are. Like, when Robert said, there's no way Trump wins the presidency.
Yeah, I thought he was doing that as a publicity stunt. Again, we recorded that not long after he announced it. We all just kind of were rolling our eyes.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it was a publicity stunt. It turns out it was for real. And with that said,
you're the only one who made that mistake.
I wish I was the only one who had made that mistake. Now, and look, we can talk about him again when he wins in 2024.
Oh my God. Here we go.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Thor: Love and Thunder comes in at fresh with 67%, which I think is the lowest for a Marvel movie from what I read, or close to
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm more surprised. I'm genuinely surprised at the audience score. That's low.
I'm not sure how much of this got review bombed because Natalie Portman in the marketing for this movie is like, this is the gayest Marvel movie we've ever done. And she said that, saying that that's a good thing. And we know that some of the audience for Marvel movies is not a huge fan of gaying things up. So I'm wondering how much of this got review bombed by people who are like, could you keep your gay out of my superhero flick?
I mean,
that's like she was pretty much damning it with faint praise to use that expression.
One more time,
really was.
One more time, David, because between breaking up and being talked over, I got none of that. Go ahead.
So that's damning it with faint praise, as in like there wasn't really a whole lot of gayness in most Marvel movies, and this one didn't really add much to that.
Well, it's funny because like I think even not William Bibiani, but William Seibold from Critically Acclaimed, somebody on Twitter was like, oh, this is like the gayest Marvel movie they've ever done. And he's like, okay, what we're qualifying as gay, and then he kind of listed whatever's in it, like Korg's two dads, which by the way is a cheeky rock joke in there.
They haven't really even established if there are females in his species, though. Like they could just be asexual and coded male.
Yeah. In any case,
Valkyrie's a lesbian, but it doesn't really play into it at all. She like kisses one of Zeus's harems.
Yeah.
And winks and jumps.
It's always in the background. It's never something that's like in the forefront. So like, and that's William Seibold's thing. It's like, stop calling things that are like like it's super gay when it's the most minuscule fucking limp-wristed attempt at being something that's representational of the LGBTQI community, and then be like heralding it as like a giant victory for cinema. Like,
I'd say Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness had more gay content in it.
Did it? I don't even remember at this point. I'm not looking for it either.
America had like two moms, and she was wearing like the pride pin on her.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's far you have to clear as far as I can tell.
Yeah, but my point is, as far as like the audience score, I think about the kind of people that go to Rotten Tomatoes and purposely like downvote things. Like,
hang on,
how much this would have angered them.
Okay, so Rotten Tomatoes can't have this both ways.
Mm-hmm.
They claim that they've done a good job of trying to weed out the review bombs.
Go finish, but then I got to add something to that because I forgot and I neglected a whole portion of this audience that's probably review bombing this out of spite. But go ahead.
If you mean the comic fans, sure.
Yes.
Look, Rotten Tomatoes has made a big deal of not over the last little bit about refining what they do to try and weed out people who are just spouting nonsense review bombs of films. Okay, they should. You can't then claim, well, I wonder if this got review bombed.
Here's the other thing.
You don't get to have that both ways.
Sorry, I got to put this comment by Pat on here. I know he's meaning to be cheeky, but I actually think that's like a valid point. He says, I think it was review bombed by gay people hoping for more gay, to be honest.
I'm sure there's a contingent that is true of.
Not gay enough. So here's my actual like thought
I
about
wanted Zeus to transform into a swan and bed Leda. What the heck?
this.
That's lots of rain.
I'm wondering how much of this is comic fans like, we don't accept Jane Thor. We won't accept Jane Thor. You're forcing Jane Thor in our Thor movie. We already hate this movie. And like, that's a bigger issue than the gay, not gay like issue with this movie. Is like no, gay, not gay. Who gives a fuck? Get Jane Thor out of my Thor movie. We hate her. And so like the movie sucks no matter what. Like that's, and I'm wondering if that's why the score is as low as it is. I mean, it's still high. It's still fresh for an audience score, but I have to imagine that's part of it.
If I put out a movie and got an 80% audience score, I'd be pretty happy with myself.
Yeah, look,
So would I, but you know, we're not holding it to the standard of what you and I would release. This is supposed to be a big. If you are getting a full 20%, a full fifth of your audience to not like your movie, when this many people are seeing it, and you're trying to appeal to the widest possible audience, that, again, this is not going to flop. It's going to make money, but that's not a great indicator.
In some ways, Thor: Love and Thunder feels like Ragnarok Redux, but overall, it offers fast enough fun pace to make this a worthy addition to the MCU.
As far as trying to parse what all the critics are saying, fine, fair enough, but this is not a worthwhile addition to anything. Look, whether you like this movie or not, I don't really care. Like what you like, whatever. This is not a worthwhile film.
Ooh, read Alison Gilmore.
I will.
Or don't.
Alison Gilmore of Winnipeg Free Press. Bale really commits because that's what he does, but there isn't much to commit to and nothing matters except the next joke.
Accurate.
Not too far off. I mean, to be honest, I read that because it was from Winnipeg and, you know, Canada represent. But yeah, I actually think decent criticism.
I mean, look, Chris Jericho's from Winnipeg too.
Larushka Ivan Zada, who is a character in a Street Fighter game from Metro.co.uk, top critic. An obscenely entertaining Rainbow Highway straight to blockbuster heaven. Ma'am, there's no DVD box. Knock it the fuck off.
Yeah,
that's trying too hard for a pull quote.
Yeah,
it really is. Good grief! Where did you get the check sent to? Like, wow.
Bob Grimm of Reno News and Review. I can't dislike a movie that features gigantic screaming goats.
Well,
I
we know what his
for you.
Are.
I mean, fair enough about being upfront about your stupid fetishes, I guess, but
His favorite movie, Men Who Stare at Goats?
No, because they kill the goats.
Amy Nicholson, who intellectually competes with toaster ovens from Film Week.
And
Don't say that about toaster ovens.
Of KPCC NPR Los Angeles, top critic. I was really compelled by the ideas Taika Waititi was teasing in this film. But the actual style of it, the eagerness to please, made me take a step back from everything. But what he's discussing is really smart.
No.
Wow, low bar.
It's not.
I mean, I made my toaster jab just because it was a funny reversal, but no, actually, yeah, I think that it's pretty competitive with the toasters.
Hey, the brave little toaster would mop the floor with her in a debate. Just jeez.
Yeah. Michael Ward of Should I See It? Looks good on paper, yet falls short in execution.
Okay.
I'm not sure how you get to looks good on paper. I get the sentiment he's trying to get at, and I think he's mostly accurate, but that was not necessarily the turn of phrase you should have used there. Jesse
Gender of Jesse Gender YouTube channel. Oh, Jesse, welcome to the show. While Chris Hemsworth continues honing his comedic chops as Thor, and the film remake, because we all know Thor from the comic book was this jokey jokester.
Yeah, I'm not sure Chris Hemsworth really has to hone his comedic chops. He's pretty much a natural at that kind of goofball comedy, and he's quite good at it. Again, I just don't think it really suits the character.
Have you seen Ghostbusters 2016? And the film remains consistent.
If you have, I weep for you.
Thank you, Robert.
And the film remains consistently entertaining. Those hoping Taika Waititi would breathe new life and excitement into the growing Marvel fatigue of Phase 4 will be disappointed. Okay.
You know, I mean, this is a sincere question to everyone out there. Okay. I think the Marvel fatigue is a real thing. We've talked about it. We've looked at we've seen the way people talk about these films. We've seen some of the box office returns that have been less than stellar. I think that's a legitimate question. Like, where is the general fan base with the Marvel fatigue at this point? Because that's a real thing.
Hey, Robert. You see him?
Oh, no.
Do you see him waddling down the hallway?
Mark's arch nemesis.
The guy
Hey,
with
Robert.
look, we held him down and tattooed wide load and a tramp stamp on this guy, all right? We can leave him alone now.
Hey, Kevin Carr, fat guy at the movies.
Why do you have to make this creepy?
Can Kevin Carr come out to play?
Come out to play, Kevin Carr.
Carr, come out to play. I need some beer bottles here.
Taika, this is like my favorite part of any review we do now is my creepy calling out of Kevin Carr. I just wonder, like, does he go on his own podcast? It was like, hey, Radulich, I'm on Rotten Tomatoes, you fat fuck. Like, does he ever get me back for this?
That would be fun. We should start a friendly rivalry.
We don't have enough of a footprint for. Look, I told you, if you want to make that a thing, every time we review a movie, you need to tweet at him on Twitter with the timestamp where we talk about what he says. That's the only way this gains traction.
Yeah, Kevin, if it makes you feel any better, if you're actually hearing this, you actually listening to this review is probably like the greatest achievement of this podcast.
Not wrong. Not wrong at all.
No argument from me.
To be honest, I think that Mark's just annoyed that you got a better name for the podcast.
I'm annoyed that you're on Rotten Tomatoes to begin with, and I'm still struggling with this. Anyway, Taika Waititi delivers another hilarious and thrilling cosmic adventure that also has a surprising amount of poignancy and a heart.
No.
Ugh.
Like,
I mean, if you're expecting no poignancy and heart, I guess yes, it's surprising.
Like, that's the only way you get to surprising when it comes to the emotional core of this film. That's it.
Yeah,
like,
Robert,
you literally expected none. No.
Okay.
Bored.
Well, surprised by the poignancy and heart, I mean.
No.
No. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Valerie Calfrin of AWFJ Women on Film. Thor Love and Thunder has the verve of a glam rock musical full of Guns N' Roses riffs, bursts of lightning, and technicolor travels along the Rainbow Bridge. But its core is the tender idea that we all crave and need love, even if it hurts to lose it.
I can't say it's factually wrong.
It's not, but you'd think someone who writes for that kind of an outlet would have encountered this idea at some other point along your intellectual readings and film watching and life experience.
Doug Walker of Channel Awesome. We hate you, Doug Walker. We hate you.
Mark hates you.
We hate you, Doug Walker. When it's a Thor movie, it's great. When it's a Minions movie, it's obnoxious.
Oh, shut up.
Like, fucking asshole.
Seriously. Like, how did you arrive at that?
I don't think he puts a lot of thought into his little quips.
Anything.
Carmen Phillips of Autostraddle, which I guess is like something pornographic you do with a car. Top critic. There's a lot of fun in Thor Love and Thunder. It's a worthy successor to Thor Ragnarok. My favorite, and despite what Natalie Portman claims, still the gayest Thor movie.
You really think...
There were a lot of qualifications on that statement.
Okay, hang on.
It is probably the gayest Thor movie.
No. She's saying that Ragnarok is the gayest Thor movie.
Oh.
And I'm struggling with that notion. More than a little bit.
I mean, I guess if you're like for like subtext, maybe, but yeah, that's on you, not the movie.
Yeah, like that. No.
All right.
Also, anyone whose favorite movie is Thor Ragnarok, like even your favorite MCU movie is Thor Ragnarok, that speaks poorly of your taste. I'm just gonna say it.
He said of most of our friends.
You can no. Look, you can enjoy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the pantheon of Marvel movies and go, this is my favorite, that says a lot about you, and not all of it's good.
Okay. Last one here. Kurt Loder of Reason Online. Bringing Russell Crowe in to play Zeus in a scene that goes on much too long is an idea that must have been hatched during an all-night mead bender. Fucking Kurt Loder. You're so cheeky.
He's not wrong about that scene being entirely too long. They could have cut that entire sequence. They really could have.
All right. Pat rebutted me. He said, I'm not being cheeky. When Portman made her comment, I believe gay people got genuinely excited when they were heavily disappointed. However, they introduced Greek gods, so plenty of gay to come.
Got a point.
He's not wrong.
No, those. Yeah, you're correct there, sir.
All right. Well, that is our Love and Thunder review. Next week, it'll be myself, the Protocol son, Jason Teasley, and Robert Winfree will be reviewing Where the Crawdad Sings. I'm on vacation the following week. I will be in Cleveland, taking Jesse to go see Rage Against the Machine. So
that still makes me laugh.
So in place of a live Damn You Hollywood will be a re-air of Damn You Hollywood. Hey, Robert, speaking of overused songs and movies, remember when we reviewed Pan?
I do.
Well, we're going to re-air it on the 26th. And then when we come back, we'll be reviewing DC League of Super Pets. So that's what's going on for Damn You Hollywood.
Would you say that you panned Pan?
We did. As for the rest of this week,
in so many ways.
Speaking of re-airs, this 14th, July 14th, we'll be re-airing the Legend of Tarzan review. On Sunday, we've got a re-airing of our on trial for the movie Inception. And then I'm back on Sunday from my trips and vacations and whatnot.
I wish
Sean and I will be reviewing
out of Cleveland.
Well, no, Cleveland's the following week. I'm going to a nude resort for the next 3 days. That's why there's no more shows this week.
Well, then I will really be back. Wish you good luck.
Telecast that one?
Will I be telecasting? That'll be at a nude resort. I mean, I'll be talking about it in vascular detail, but I have to go first. Anyway, so Sean and I will be reviewing Studio 666, Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny in Detroit Rock City on July 17th. Jesse and I will continue from the corner to the deuce, the great works of David Simon, by talking about The Actual Corner, one of the most depressing shows in the history of television. And then one of the least depressing shows in the history of television will be myself, Alexis Hana. And we'll be Alexis Hana got drafted to talk about this. Nobody volunteered for this, and this was at a time that I was still scheduling stuff just to schedule things. So one of the very last TV shows I'll be reviewing that I felt compelled to, not because I wanted to, but I have been enjoying watching it with my daughter and even my wife. She got in on the gag. We'll be reviewing Ms. Marvel, so that'll be fun. Are you sad you're gonna miss that review, Ms. Marvel? There, Robert Winfree, Screaming Boy podcast.
Mark,
yes.
You don't want me on that show.
No, you're completely correct about that. All right, go ahead and do your plugs there, Robert.
All right, Mark mentioned what we'll be reviewing next week, so thank you all very much for listening to this show. If you'd like to follow some of my other stuff, I have another podcast that I host. It is the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. If you're interested in the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts, I cover that. So you can punch that into your podcast platform of choice, and you can probably find me there. I cover professional wrestling and mixed martial arts for 411mania.com. I cover AEW's Dark Elevation on Monday, MLW's various adventures on Thursday, WWE SmackDown on Friday, and whatever the UFC is doing on Saturday. This Saturday, I will be covering UFC on ABC 3, which begins at 11 a.m. Eastern time for the prelims. So that'll be fun. But you can find all of those in either the wrestling or MMA zones of 411mania.com. And I very much appreciate any of you that do happen to bop over there and check those out. So thank you very, very much.
All right. Damn you, Pat. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us here on Damn You Hollywood. Hope you enjoyed our review of Thor, Love and Thunder. For David Wright and Robert Winfree, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and be